Hi, welcome to Mark and Amber's Kitchen.
And I'm Mark.
And I'm Amber.
So today we're going to be making one of my signature dishes, which is shrimp creole. One of my signature dishes, and in front of you are pretty much the main ingredients. All come from our garden. We have a bell pepper, one bell pepper. I've got a couple of serranos. Usually use habaneros, but I don't have any, so I use that. And a variety of tomatoes from our garden, which are low acid, and Amber can tell you all about the different kinds of varieties of tomatoes we grow. So if I don't have any fresh tomatoes, I usually use, well, the recipe calls for 1 can of like diced tomatoes, the larger 28-ounce cans, and to compensate for the acidity in the tomatoes, whether they're canned or not, and spaghetti sauce, anything that has a lot of tomatoes, you can add a little bit of sugar. That'll kind of knock off that acidity, not much, just a tablespoon or so. You're not looking to sweeten the mixture, but ease the acidity. So as soon as I get through cutting these, we can start over at the stove.
Oh, and a side dish that we're going to be making is a cucumber salad as well.
So we've already got those cut up. And Amber and I have totally different recipes. So I don't know if she's going to do hers or she's going to want me to do mine.
Maybe we'll do a combination.
Oh my.
Because there's things that I like in yours. However, I like the little bit of milk added into mine to neutralize the vinegar some. Yeah,
and I prefer red wine vinegar, which I don't think you favor as much as I do. Through chopping everything up, we'll have everything prepared. And then we'll hightail it over to the stove where we can start, and I'll tell you all about the spices we're going to use. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is saute our onions and peppers. I start with about a 1/4 stick of butter and a little bit of olive oil, a couple tablespoons. And we'll throw in the goodies that we're going to caramelize. And that was 1 onion, pretty good size onion, and a good size pepper, and 2 serranos that just went in there. And we'll add our spices in just a minute after I get them nicely coated with oil and butter.
And those were some of the peppers from our indoor garden for this winter.
So I'm going to have my spices so they start to cook in, and garlic, of course. I'm going to put in about 2 tablespoons of crushed garlic. We like garlic. I might add just a skosh more.
We like garlic a lot.
Yeah, I could use garlic and basil on anything, and those are Amber's favorites. So that's probably enough garlic. And basil. So I had a good bit of garlic. I think the recipe actually calls for like a tablespoon, but I'm putting more in. Maybe twice that.
I sure can't wait until summer when we'll be able to use all the fresh basil in our garden then.
Including our thyme, which is being grown, which is going in now. Maybe a teaspoon or so of that. Some regular old black pepper. Not too much, maybe a teaspoon. Paprika is a big ingredient in this recipe. I think it calls for at least a tablespoon. I haven't looked at the recipe in a long time. We don't usually go by what's written down. We go by our taste.
And we like it when it tastes good. Mm-mm.
We like flavor. So there's enough to start with. Normally, like I said before, I use a little habanero pepper and cut that up, but I didn't have one. I had the serranos, which have a nice flavor, but they're not very hot. I don't think so. So I'm just going to add a few drops of habanero sauce just for a little bit of heat. And one other staple in our repertoire is pico pica, which is a pretty mild hot sauce, but it's got
very good flavor.
Wonderful flavor. So that may be, I don't know, a teaspoon of that in there. So that's pretty much it for the spices at this point.
And then we go ahead and let this caramelize.
So we're just about done caramelizing here, so we can add the tomatoes in and let those stew a little bit.
And in case you don't know how you can tell your onions have reached the caramelization, you want to see them almost a little translucency.
These to finish caramelizing, I can tell you a fishtail. Well, not quite a fishtail, more like a hat tail. So one of the things you need is your Bubba Gump shrimp hat if you're going to do shrimp creole. And if you notice, I've got different hats for different occasions, like the one in the wood shop. You have to watch the videos to find out what it is if you missed it. But anyway, there's a little story with this hat. I really like Forrest Gump movie, and who doesn't? It's a good movie. So I always thought I wanted a Bubba Gump shrimp hat. Well, for years I couldn't find one. And I went down to Tulum in Mexico, and while I was in the Cancun airport, very big airport, they had pretty much a mall. They had a Bubba Gump store. Everything Bubba Gump in there, including a Bubba Gump hat. So, a few years and a few thousand miles, I finally found my Bubba Gump shrimp hat. So I forgot to tell you to add wine. That's kind of the base. With canned tomatoes, of course, I throw the juice in. But we use just a white Zinfandel a lot in cooking. In this recipe, it lends itself very well. So that's how I'm adding the liquid. Wine. And
did you say lime?
Wine.
Ah, wine.
So of course the tomatoes are going to add a lot of liquid too, and it's time for them to go in. So I'm just going to dump them in. There's some water in the bottom of the plate. I don't really particularly want. I'd rather have the wine than the water. And when we get to the shrimp too, that's going to add water. Or liquid, I should say. Okay, let me get that stirred in, and I'll let that liquefy a little bit and then double check my spices. This is maybe a slightly bigger batch. I might need to adjust my spices. That means add some. I have to wait to get my heat back. Those were actually frozen. We had them frozen in the fridge, big gallon bags from the garden.
Yeah, I was gonna can them, and we ended up using up quicker than I could can them. Well, not quicker because it's been all winter, but.
The spices look good. They're all over the place, but we'll let it cook in and see what we have here.
And this is so delicious.
It may not be as big as a batch as I thought.
Oh, we need to get the rice going. Okay, once we put the tomatoes in, we go ahead and start the rice going.
And get yourself a pot. And we're going to do about 3.5 cups of rice. That's a lot of rice for that pot. And we're going to put some water in it, of course. About 2.25 times as much water as rice.
Use hot water.
And let's check our taste. Oh, by the way, I've got the iron pot on, maybe medium high. Maybe about 2/3 of the way up or so. I really don't want to boil anything, but I do want it to simmer.
One of the tricks I do for the water is I try to do it about a knuckle above the line of the rice.
Yeah, we have different techniques for that. So when it comes to a boil, I'll put the lid on it and turn it down to low, and in about 10 minutes we should have perfect rice.
And when he's not looking, generally, I come over here and I add a little basil. Because I like basil. And this dish is very tasty flavor. So for the rice, I just do a mild sort of contrasting sweet flavor with this.
And I'm adjusting my spices over here. I added more paprika, which is like a main spice in this dish. Paprika is a pretty mild spice to begin with, I think.
And I do a hint of oregano. But shh, don't tell him I do this.
I'll never know.
I need the sage.
Sage. I have some rub sage handy, as opposed to ground.
Again, this is just to give it just a little bit of a sweetened flavor to the rice. And about 1/4 cube of butter. The lid. And I'll bring this to a rapid boil. Once it goes to the rapid boil, I'll turn it down to a low, and that'll simmer. And just before after it gets to the rapid boil, go ahead and give it a very light stir so that you make sure none of the rice has gone in there. The butter will be able to get down and help coat the pan as well.
To our concoction here is add some cornstarch, about 3 tablespoons actually, teaspoons, and I wouldn't throw it right in there because it will clump up real nasty. So in this case, what I'm going to do is just mix it with some wine.
And if you don't want to use cornstarch, you can also use arrowroot. Powdered arrowroot.
So I'm pre-mixing it. That way that there's no clumps when it goes in that you're going to have to chase around the pot. And then we'll just pour it in and stir it in there. And at this point, although this can be a quick meal, about 20 minutes, and you're ready to go. We're going to let this simmer. I'm going to pour the shrimp in just a minute as soon as I get this in here. And it's just about where I want it. We're going to let ours simmer a little bit because the longer it cooks, the better the flavors get to know one another. This is one of those meals where, like spaghetti, it's kind of better the longer you cook it and the next day and all that good stuff. And since I'm going to let it simmer, I'm going to add a little bit more liquid, since I need to get rid of the wine anyway. And let me get the shrimp, and we'll dump that in. And as soon as that's cooked, it's pretty much ready to eat. Now, you know your shrimp is cooked when you see the edges kind of curl a little bit. And of course it'll turn kind of an orangey pink.
And while this is simmering, we'll get the cucumber salad ready.
I'll just stir this in good. And I lost some of my heat. As soon as it starts to boil again, I'm going to turn the heat down to about a quarter of the way and just let it simmer a bit. We can cover this up and just let it simmer at this point.
And if you can see this, you can see the rice has separated out and risen. It's simmering. The rice is finishing up. We're going to do this real quick so you can get a little chill. Go ahead and put your vinegar in there. That's a half a cup of vinegar, a fourth of a cup of sugar, or you can do a little less of that too. An eighth of a cup of hemp seed, so one of the reasons why we're grinding up the fennel, otherwise I would just put it in there, but this isn't going to be set overnight, which oftentimes would be good to set it overnight so that you can have it. But I want to grind it up just so that the flavor will be able to get through the sauce.
That's pretty pungent. Kind of smells like licorice.
Mm-hmm.
It may be as good as it's going to get. We're certainly
okay. That's good.
We're certainly releasing the aromas.
Yeah. And we just need an itsy bit because we're just making enough salad for dinner. And give it a good stir. Get all the seasonings, or shake it up if you want.
Make sure the lid's on nice.
And give it a good shake.
The lid's not on so nice.
Yeah. And then put it in the refrigerator to chill for.
Well, that's a quick, easy, tasty recipe. And being good Americans, we're going to have it in our living room right in front of television. And we'll probably turn on our YouTube and watch you guys do your thing and be hitting the like, subscribe, and maybe make a comment or two. And
thanks for watching.
yeah, thanks for watching. And I'm hungry. I'm going to dig in.